to. The purpose of this flight was in part to stay current, in part to warm up the engines on the aeroplane and get the oil circulating, and in part just for a bit of fun. We knew that there was a weather front coming through, but we hoped we'd get our little flight out to the coast done just in time. Anyway, more about that weather front later. You're going to put on your hood. Which aeroplane do you like the best, Alice?
Yellow.
The yellow one.
He's going to check it.
I'm going to check our aeroplane, Alice. Put the tow bar away. Put the cowl plugs away. Put the pitot cover away. Check the oil. Check the fuel. Check the electrics and the control surfaces. A checks, walk around checks. Unfortunately, I have a fault with the audio cable, so you won't be able to hear any of the ATC communications on this video today. Runway in use today is runway 28, and you can see an aircraft taking off on 28 ahead of us here. Before we enter the runway, we do a final set of checks at the hold ATPL. We didn't need a clearance to enter the runway because Sherburn is an air-ground airfield, so there's no air traffic control. An air-ground radio operator can give us information but can't give us any instructions either for taxiing on the ground or for what we do in the air. Before we take off, one final set of checks, checking that the engines are good, running up to 2000 RPM, no oil, no smoke, T's and P's are green, and then brakes off, throttles forward, mixtures forward, away we go. Checking that the fuel flows are good, checking that the airspeed's alive, and as we rotate, quick dab on the brakes, gear up. 200 feet, positive rate, check the flaps are up. I normally take off without flaps when I have enough runway where there's tarmac, reserving flaps for soft field. It's one less thing to tidy up in the event of an engine failure when you're flying with a twin. And as you can see on the climb out here, there was a little bit more turbulence than expected and a little bit of rain, a sign that that front I mentioned earlier was coming in a little bit earlier than expected. A little bump there, you can can see that Alice absolutely loves it. Coming up to the 500-foot mark, we reduce the power to 25 inches on the manifold pressure, 2500 RPM on the propellers, because that reduces the noise considerably as we go past the villages. Bit of rain on the windscreen, and you can see the beginnings of that front coming in over there. Turning downwind now to leave the Sherburn circuit and head out eastwards towards better weather. On the Twin Comanche, the trim control is an overhead handle as it is on earlier Piper Cherokees. Still encountering a little bit of turbulence here, but we're down at 1,000 feet, and this improves considerably as we climb away as we leave the Sherburn ATZ. We're setting up a nice gentle cruise. 20 inches of manifold pressure each side, 2300 RPM. That's going to give us 140 knots for a fuel burn of 23 litres per hour per side, 46 litres per hour total, which for a light twin is remarkably frugal. And you can see that the further east we go, the better the weather becomes, with some bright skies out over the east coast. Today's flight conducted as a VFR flight up to 3,000 feet. By this stage, with a substantial tailwind, we'd reached north of Beam Mahumba Bridge, but we heard on the radio several reports of pilots abandoning attempts to get into Leeds East and Sherburn because of what they described as rapidly deteriorating weather in that area. Consequently, with internet weather radar pictures showing storms pushing out towards the east coast, passing through Sherburn, together with a TAF which suggested we were going to have temporarily 7,000 metre showers of rain, possibly heavy showers of rain and CVs, and 25 knot gusts, we decided to turn back and not push our luck too much. All the while, we were considering options for diversion fields if the weather became too inclement. And then the weather deteriorated. Remember, VFR is permitted down to 1,500 metres visibility, but I wouldn't recommend it. We were at 2,000 feet here, and according to the Garmin, we had a 65 knot headwind. We seemed to be making no progress against the storm at all. But then, just as quickly as we'd run into it, it popped out the other side. At this point I called up Sherburn for airfield information, suspecting that if the conditions were bad, a straight-in join would be best. However, Sherburn radio confirmed that the circuit was active and that there were at least 3 aircraft in the visual circuit, and that suggested to me that conditions back at base, while not perfect, were clearly not too bad. Therefore, we set up for a standard overhead join. Downwind checks are complete, gear is down and blocked, 1 stage of flaps, and as we turn final, we do our final checks. Reds for mixture, blues for props, and green for gear. The strong southerly wind has taken us through the centre line, but once we're past the spoil heap from the old mine, which was just short of the 2/8 threshold, the nasty gusty winds settle down, so the landing isn't too dramatic. Boost pumps coming off.
Lucky old lambs. That's no problem, so long as she's okay.
Interesting conditions.
Yeah, that little storm over Brecon, it was showing a 65 knot headwind, which meant that we were barely making any progress at all.